Sometimes, in order to conquer the foe in front of you, you also must be willing to become a monster. You must be willing to abandon your humanity if it means seeing the dream through to the end. This was the difficult decision Sanji found himself facing during the Onigashima raid. Whether he liked it or not, Sanji was quickly morphing into the very thing he hated. The source of his vendetta, the cursed Vinsmokes, and yet it is because of that wicked blood that Sanji would experience an awakening. This awakening is every bit of mental as it is physical. How did this awakening come about? How does it affect Sanji going forward? And what can we expect to see in the future with Sanji's new power-up? Let's get right into it. Before the Vinsmoke boys were even out of their mother's womb, their father, that bastard judge, had the genetic makeup of his own children altered, thus turning them into ruthless biological superhumans against their will. Thankfully, their loving mother Sora would take measures into her own hands as she took a drug that would prevent her children from becoming heartless monsters, but sadly, this only worked for Sanji. Of the four Vinsmoke quadruplets, the only child who somehow maintained his humanity was Sanji, and on the contrary, the only one who didn't receive the biological enhancements at birth was Sanji. To no fault of his own, this young child was deemed a failure and got treated as such. He endured gang assaults from his own brothers and was faced with verbal abuse from his father. Sanji's hatred of his blood family is absolutely valid, and I am pretty sure that most people would be able to share his sentiments if they also were in that position. As we know, Sanji eventually escaped the German kingdom and dismissed his Vinsmoke heritage altogether, meeting new family, real family on the Blue Sea. But the problem with trying to escape your past is, one way or the other, it's gonna catch up to you. After a reunion with his estranged family on Whole Cake Island, Sanji was gifted a raid suit of his own, identical to the one his brothers also wear. These raid suits are technologically enhanced battle suits, with each of the siblings having an ability exclusive to their respective suits. Of course, Sanji initially refused to ever don the costume until he realized that to protect his friends, he must be willing to do things that he does not want to. But donning a really awesome costume in battle and literally becoming your abusers are two completely different things here. In a cruel twist of fate, the technology of the raid suit caused a biological reaction deep within Sanji, and suddenly, he found himself being able to force entire broken limbs back into place and tanking attacks from Kaido's second commander, Queen. It was pretty clear what was occurring here. Sanji had awakened those latent enhancements, meaning he was becoming a monster just like his brothers. Now, this is something that Sanji obviously just couldn't accept, even abandoning the battle with Queen to go and collect himself. Within a matter of minutes, Sanji's whole identity of who he is was changing right before his eyes, and in this moment of crisis, do you know who it is Sanji chose to prioritize? His captain, Luffy. Would being human and bearing weakness be more useful, or would an emotionless warrior of science be better suited for the king of the pirates? Whichever version of himself that Sanji was going to be at the end of it all, he was 100% prepared for whatever outcome, and that is really admirable, especially in the heat of battle. This was proof that despite the biological happenings occurring deep within Sanji, Sanji was still himself. He maintained every bit of his humanity that he'd had. It's ironic, really. The son who was outcasted and deemed a failure, the son who was beaten and abused for being normal would actually turn out to be the perfect human being from a scientific standpoint at least. On the surface, it might seem like the sacrifice of Sora was all for naught, but it is really the opposite. It is because of Sora that Sanji would turn out the way he did. A kind, affectionate young man, even willing to rescue his abusers, as that is the kind of man his real father raised him to be. A young man who is just as powerful as his heart is big. Sanji did not become what that bastard judge had hoped for. He is not a mindless super soldier of destruction, but rather he is a compassionate human being with all the benefits of the Germa enhancements. How funny fate is that the one who was deemed a failure, the one who was thrown away like common garbage by his own family, would actually evolve into the ideal human being. So now that we've established how these new enhancements of Sanji came to be, what exactly does this mean for the future of his character? For starters, speaking purely in terms of power, this does wonders for Sanji, and that's saying something because he was already immensely strong without the Germa power up, but now Sanji is truly next level. An exoskeleton impervious to physical damage, speed faster than the eye can even process, and a body that can endure fire hotter than the flames of hell. To put it simply, man, Sanji is a beast. As Nico Robin so eloquently put it, Sanji is the man worthy of being the wings of the Pirate King. This also makes Sanji's eventual reunion, I guess that's the word of choice here, with the Vinsmokes particularly interesting, because Sanji no longer has that moral high ground of not being a monster anymore. For all intents and purposes, he is exactly like his siblings now, minus the apathy, of course. Sanji might have accepted what was happening to him internally, but how will he deal with coming face to face with his family again after these changes? When staring into the emotionless eyes of those of whom he is unfortunately bound to by blood. Now one of them, it begs the question of whether or not Sanji will maintain the stance he's had towards the Vinsmokes for all these years, or will his ideologies be subject to change? The character arc of Vinsmoke Sanji is one of the most well thought out in the entire series, and I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that Sanji is the best written character among all of the Straw Hat Pirates. It is very clear to me that Oda has closely studied estranged families and the impact coming from those sorts of upbringings can have on an individual. Sanji choosing not to forgive his abusers despite his own morality is fantastic writing in and of itself, but Oda added to that by having Sanji transform into the very symbol of the Germa Kingdom's terroristic power. There is much more to Sanji's awakening besides what's on the surface. His becoming stronger, his being able to produce hotter fire. In this case, this is about redefining what it means to be a human being. Being human is not about what's on the outside or whatever other external advantages one might have, but rather what is inside of one's own heart. For all of the technological prowess the Sanji's brothers might have, the one thing that they lack, the one thing that they will never have that Sanji does have, is a heart. Sanji was blessed with human emotions and superhuman powers, so really, who exactly is the failure in this whole story? Alright, that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, you guys know the drill by now. You know what to do. Make sure you smash that like button on your way out. And if you are new to the channel, firstly, welcome to the kingdom, and make sure you subscribe, because when you subscribe, you are helping me help you, because when you subscribe, you are guaranteed some of the best One Piece content on the market. That is not a lie, that's just a fact of life. You guys be easy, take care of yourself, and I will see you lovely, amazing people on the flip side, man. Stay gold.